I remember there's only one time in my life that was frightened me as quite much. It happened just shortly after my 11th-year birthday. I'm currently 18 years old and my name is Allison. I had always believed in ghosts and demons and all kinds of things. It's been most because that I have been watching a lot of scary movies like The Poltergeist and some other haunted like Ghostbusters and all that. Even despite my parents had been telling me I would always get nightmares by watching those stuff, but it never happened. I didn't watch them by myself or with my older sister Kelly. But like I said, this happened shortly after my 11th-year birthday. And I can go so as far as back to telling you shortly before it all happened. On my 11th-year birthday, I was so super excited. It was just me, my parents, my older sister Kelly, and my aunt Charlotte. My aunt Charlotte was at my mom's younger sister. She was actually one of my favorite relatives in my whole family. I mean, she was always outgoing, very social, and very lovely person. But unfortunately, we aren't unable to see her so much as often as we wanted to. It's because she lives a different state from us, and has at least almost 10 hours drive from us. It's it's sad, but at least I had a good time when she did actually. She gave me a special gift. From my family, I got some clothes, some games and toys, and even some books. But from my aunt Charlotte, she gave me a doll, an older looking doll. She told my family that she bought this from a yard sale only about a week before my birthday, since she didn't know what to give me. So when she was out driving town, um, in her town where she lives, she came across this house was having a yard sale, and she stopped it. Maybe that she could find something that's very unique or something I would like. There were mostly old toys and other things, but only one thing got her mind, or high eyes on: an older looking doll. According to the owner, she was given this doll back in the 50s when she was younger, and has been in her family for quite a while, but now she has decided it's time for her to let this doll to find a new home, since she was getting older and she needed to get away some of her stuff. So my aunt bought it all, and even I was a little bit too old for dolls, but I couldn't say no to my aunt. But also, this was a very older doll. It was like a porcelain body or like plastic. I don't know, remember exactly what. I believe it was more plastic ones. And I gave her the name Jennifer. Jennifer was very unusual doll. Ever since then, when I went often to other flea market or yard sale with my parents or with my aunt, I never found any doll that was familiar or even looked anything like her. Or even ever since then, I actually tried to figure out or try to find if this particular doll was a mass-produced doll back in the 1950s or, but I couldn't find any records or anything that's linked to this doll years later after this particular event. But anyways, back at the birthday party, I thanked my aunt Charlotte for this gift, and I actually loved Jennifer. Even though that she was a little bit older looking doll, and but I did put her in my room, and even though I was a little bit older, for a little bit too old for the dolls, but despite this, I loved Jennifer. She was a unique doll, and especially ever since she was a gift from my aunt, my only aunt from my mom's side of the family. So, but things was actually quite different ever since ever about a week after my my 11th birthday, I was the only one who had actually noticed some weird occurrence around in the house. One time it was just me and my older sister at home, but she was outside in the backyard doing something while my parents were at the store. I was just in the living room watching some TV or cartoons. I don't even remember what it was. But suddenly the lights flickered. I was like, is the did did dad or mom pay for an electric bill or anything? But I thought maybe nothing much about it. Suddenly the whole room went completely dark. But luckily this was just in the early afternoon, so it was still daylight, and this was middle of the summer, so I mean well, I was like stunned. So I thought maybe a fuse went. So I went to the garage, but according to the list, my dad had shown me how to fix this, how to check on the fuse box, just in case. But no fuse had even went, and I thought maybe the lights just turned off or something, or but since no other fuses had even just popped, so I was like, what happened? So I went to the backyard, finding Kelly just, I think maybe she was just sitting, reading a book or something. I just told her that the TV or basically all lights in the living room just turned off. She asked about the fuse box. I said I checked, but nothing. She was a little bit confused, so even though she was a little bit annoyed, but she went inside to look. Sure enough, it was off. But she went to different parts in the house, like the kitchen, no lights. She went to the bathroom, no lights. She even went upstairs just to check one of the rooms upstairs just in case. Still off. She was really surprised, and with no power, she could even just call the phone. And even though she had her cell phone, but she was about to use it, but she realized, or at least remember, she had just put it on for charging. And since she looked, it was just barely like 2% of charged. So it wouldn't even be enough time for her to call mom or dad. So we, well, there was nothing else we could do. So we went out the backyard to do just something. And when our parents came home, we told them about this blackout. But they even Mom went over to our next door neighbor and asked if they had any blackouts or power blackout. But they didn't. And she went to our next door to the right and both on the left. And nothing. Apparently, our house was the only one that had a blackout. And Dad even went to look at the fuse box, and he was scratching his head. There was no sign of any of the fuses has even popped or anything. He was just puzzled as we are. He was like, "This is confusing. I have no explanation how this even possible." And after that, the power came back on itself, and it's like there was nothing. And we even called the electric company just to see if there was any error from their end. Nothing. That was just the only first strange occurrence among many. But we had no idea what else was in line for wait for us. For the next several days, I started hearing this giggling sound from the house. I thought maybe that my sister had one of her friends over, but sometimes when I did hear it, I realized that my sister wasn't even home. And my mom confirmed that she wasn't home. And she probably thought that I was just overactive, just imagine it. Maybe it was the pipelines or maybe the bird outside. I was like, that's possible. But one night, I was in bed. This was probably around 2 in the morning. I just woke up. I I needed to use the restroom when I got back, I saw this strange figure standing in my closet. I had my bedside table lamp on because otherwise it's pitch black and I wouldn't have been able to. Otherwise, I would be bumped into things. I always turn it on and off when I went to bed. But this time, when I was in bed, just about to turn it off, in this closet, I saw this dark black mass shape as a man or something. I screamed as loud as I could. My dad rushed in and asked what was wrong. And as I pointed in the closet, but this thing was gone. My dad assumed that I would had a nightmare and just told me I'd had one. But I told him I wasn't even asleep. I just had returned from the bed restroom for use, and he still assumed that I was just imagining it. Probably something of the light had just played a trick on my eyes. But I was really firm I saw a man figure standing there. I didn't let him leave the room until he checked, and as annoyed that could sound, but he did look, but no signs of any man has ever been there. And the next morning when I told my mama this over breakfast, my dad said by interrupted saying that I was just imagining it. And my mom knows that I do have an overactive imagination sometimes, so she brushed it off. So there was nothing else I can do. So for the next several days, the next couple of weeks, this kind of things reoccurred almost every single night. But sometimes this was standing by my bed, by the end of the bed, and sometimes it spoke. It said my name, Allison, with most a raspy voice like Allison. And I was terrified. I almost refused to sometimes even be in my own room at night. I tried to ask my parents if I could sleep with them, but they said always no. I'm old enough to sleep in my own room. I'm too old for sleep with them, even despite this. So I told my sister about this, and she believed me. Despite my parents didn't even believe any such thing said about this supernatural. They believe that the poltergeist activity or ghost or just nonsense. They didn't even believe it. And I convinced my sister for once to sleep with me in my room, just hoping that she could see this thing herself. Even though she believed me, but she thought maybe if she was there, it's unlikely she would not even see this. But she agreed. And as we almost suspected this might not have happened. But around, I think maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, we heard this closet door slowly cracking open, and we didn't turn on the lights, but we saw this, and this time was a full moon, and it was bright enough to in the window, and saw this black mass shape as a person walking slowly out from the closet, but this time it had red eyes, and that was the most terrifying I ever seen. And my sister saw it too, but as we turned on the light, the figure gone. But we both agreed we were not asleep. We saw the same thing. But we both agreed not to mention this to our parents, because they wouldn't even believe me. And even if they didn't believe me, so why would they wouldn't believe my older sister? Because she was not having this overactive imagination as I do. So we tried to figure out what this could have been. After reading it online, and even reading about remembered scenes from different shows, we made a conclusion. This was not a friendly spirit, but we believe this was a demon. Based on the description that most people have been seeing, A black man is the shape of a person, with red eyes and raspy voice. We tried to make our own plans to make this stop, but none of that didn't work. We tried to make a prayer, but it somehow made it even worse. We started hearing someone walking on the hallway with boots, and that annoyed my parents. They even told us in the morning each time, stop walking around with stand stomping in the hallway while they tried to sleep. But we denied we had nothing to do with it. And even when the time when both of me and my sister was out of the house, my parents could still hear this voice, this stomping sounds. And it is only getting worse because when we told my grandmother, who was still lived at our own house, not far from our own, we told her about this strange occurrence. And my grandmother, who was a strong believer in the supernatural as we were, and she told us, and even based on the description of the being that we said, but even our parents tried to tell her that we would just imagine it. But when my sister told them she has seen it, she heard the sound, and she had been having same things from her room, not the thing, but the being. My grandmother told them they should not be stop calling this as fantasy, because it was real. Because she actually said there are things between heaven and earth that can yet be explained by science. And this was the demonic possession in our house. There's only a matter of time before this demonic possession would been feeding of fear or being scared. If we be getting more scared, if we be more terrified that these things will be, the stronger this demon will be. And if this demon will be strong enough, it could make us serious harm. My grandmother told me that she heard of a friend of hers when she was younger. She was attacked by a demon, and it nearly killed her. But my parents just blew it off as nothing. It's just a childhood fantasy. But my parents told them, me and my sister, should stop talking about it and it just will go away. And we didn't talk about it for a few days, and things only got even worse because one morning, when my parents just walked down into the kitchen, they saw all the drawers was open. The place has been smashed to pieces. And we were blamed, but we told them, why would we do that? And surprising enough, when I asked, and since none of my parents are not that heavy sleeper, they are like light sleeper, they had always been hearing those bang sounds in the hallway with someone like walking with boots. So why didn't they wake up if someone were in the kitchen smashing plates and glasses? That surprised my parents for once, because they both agreed. They both have heard it. And none of us heard it actually. And surprising enough, I'm also a light sleeper, but for some reason I didn't have it. But my parents told me once again that this is just probably an earthquake. But that same day, when my parents were busy cleaning up, me and my sister went over to our neighbors and asked if they had an earthquake happen to their home. But they said no. They asked why. And we told them, well, that's kind of strange. Because there were no reports of any earthquake activity in the neighborhood. And in fact, there hasn't even been any signs of an earthquake activity in our part of the region for quite a long time. And this fact, we live in a support close earthquake activity. So if there was, we can immediately roll out earthquakes. But as a grandmother told us, it's a demonic. My sister, she had enough. She decided to call for someone to actually get this help. So she called the church, and told them about this strange behavior. And luckily though, they managed to call Kim over to the house, despite the parents tried to be telling them, or the priest, we just made it all up. But as the priest walked in, he said that he can feel some heavy air, like there is some strong negative. As he was walking around, suddenly I screamed, and I actually felt my back was burning. My mom was scared when she found 3 claw marks or scratches on my back. And the priest said, clear sign of the demonic activity. As they were walking around, the priest said this house need to be blessed immediately. So he started performing this cleansing ceremony. And as he was doing, we can actually hear almost screaming of like a deep growling sound. But it was not from my room for this once. It was actually from almost anywhere in the house. As the priest continued, it continued, and continued. Then suddenly, he said the air felt lifted, and the sound was gone. He explained that this demonic possession likely had been in the doll that my aunt gave me. Even though, not because it's possible that this demonic possession just had been, not always have been in a doll, but perhaps it's just found the doll was maybe something, an object that could be possessed. But now that the demon was gone, the house was once cleansed, and that particular event made my parents strong believer as we were. My aunt, Charlotte, well, let's say that she apologized repeatedly. She had no idea, but my parents told her she didn't know this. And that since demons somehow came to enter the doll shortly sometimes after the doll came in their house. Well, what happened to the doll? Jennifer. Well, I did actually keep her. And in fact, I still have her even to this day. And no signs of any paranormal activity in the house or in my place right now. So I believe this demon is gone. And for that, I'm really thankful, because I would have been sad to have to get rid of Jennifer, because she was a toy, a doll. But things not always look as it seems they are. So once again, thank you.